What's good, Applied English? So our first instructional video today over verb tense went a little bit longer than I had expected. So I'll try to be quick as we work through subject-verb agreement in the second half of this lesson here. At the end of this video, I will cover just the directions for our practice assignment as well. So please make sure you watch through the end of this video. Subject-verb agreement notes. So just like it was with verb tense, I have included my PowerPoint presentation for subject-verb agreement right here, so you can follow along with me or go through it on your own if you choose. I've also included a virtual copy of the note sheet we'll be using in class. If you click on the document title itself, it'll download it to your computer, so you can open it up, print it, fill it in that way. That works too. Or if you click View, it'll just open it up in a new tab. Just like it was with verb tense, this just gives you an idea on what blanks to fill in. You are free to do this on your own line paper or in a notebook if you choose. Keep in mind, I do have a bunch of extra copies of this in my classroom, so if you're an in-person learner and just want to pick it up at a later time, that works too. I've also got some copies up in the advising office at Milwaukee Lutheran, so even if you're virtual and you want a chance to pick up paper copies of the note sheets that we do in class, you can do that too. That is an option available to you. I'm just going to leave that open for a moment just in case I want to come back to it, but I want to teach you through subject-verb agreement basics here. Feel free to fill in those blanks as you listen or take your own notes on your own piece of paper. As a reminder, you can pause these videos at any point if I'm going too quickly for the sake of note-taking for you. Let's get this going. There we go. So subject-verb agreement, there's really only one major big rule with subject-verb agreement, and it's that subjects and verbs must agree in number. So as a reminder, the verb of a sentence is the action of the sentence, or it's a state of being, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, or been. The subject is the noun or pronoun that commits that verb, that does the verbing in that sentence. The rule here is that singular subjects, so if you only have one of your given subject, it'll require a singular verb. If you have plural subjects, more than one person, place, thing, idea, it'll require a plural verb as well. So if we take a look here, the man wears 4 ties. Our verb there is wears. Notice that man is singular. There's only one man as the subject of this sentence, and so it takes a singular verb, wears. It's kind of weird how singular subjects, or how with nouns, singulars do not take S's, but with verbs, singular verbs do take S's. So the man wears instead of the man wear 4 ties. His favorite college is, so linking verb this time, is singular because college is singular. There's only one, is in Nebraska. Matt, along with his friends, goes to Coney Island. This one's a little bit weird. Our subject here is Matt, and along with his friends is a prepositional phrase, so we can ignore that for now. The verb is goes. So the base of this sentence is Matt goes to Coney Island. Matt singular, goes is singular. And then we have the plural forms of all 3 of those sentences. Instead of the man wears 4 ties, the men, plural, maybe it's 50 men, wear 4 ties each. That's a lot of ties. It's 200 ties. Notice that wear is plural, wears is singular. His favorite colleges, plural, more than one colleges now, are, plural, in Nebraska. Matt and his friends go to Coney Island. Now instead of Matt along with his friends, it's Matt and his friends, so compound subject, it's plural now. Go is a plural verb to Coney Island. I know that rule is more on the simpler side. This is the rule that we tend to get right when we speak most of the time, but there are some little kind of sub-rules that go along with subject-verb agreement that we'll want to cover today too. One thing that's tricky with subject-verb agreement is that ACT writers like to put phrases between the sentence's subject and verb. That's actually what we saw with Matt along with his friends. We might be tempted to say go right here. Matt, along with his friends, go to Coney Island, right? But it doesn't work that way because this prepositional phrase is not a subject. Matt is the subject. So you'll oftentimes, if you're taking like the ACT Aspire in a couple of months here, you might see a sentence like this. An audience of thousands of people who have come from afar seem terrifying to a nervous performer. Our verb in this sentence is seem, and it comes really, really, really late. We have to ask ourselves, what is the subject of this sentence? It's not afar, that's an object of the preposition from. It's not people, because it's people who have come. The verb that comes with people is come. Of thousands is a prepositional phrase, of people's prepositional phrase. Our subject here is audience. Now audience is singular. There's one audience, not multiple audiences. So it has to take the singular verb, seems. This would also be a good one to use your process of elimination. We can take have seemed. An audience have seemed terrifying doesn't make any sense. To seem is even worse. We just have to discuss whether it's the singular verb seems or the plural verb seem has to be singular. And that's just an example. I know those get really, really tricky. Just keep an eye out for what the actual subject of a sentence is. You'll see a couple of those in your practice today. A couple other smaller rules to subject-verb agreement. For one, collective nouns. Words like committee, family, group, number, and team. They're almost always singular, even if they have multiple people inside of it. A soccer team has 11 people on the field at any time. But if I wanted to describe that team doing the same action, I'm going to treat that as a singular subject because they are working as one unit. For instance, the flock of geese is heading south instead of the flock of geese are heading south. Don't get confused on this one. The subject of this sentence is not geese. That's an object of the preposition of. Your subject here is flock, and flock is singular. It's a collective noun. Not the flock are, the flock is heading south. Our team is going to Chuck E. Cheese's to celebrate the big win, instead of our team are going to Chuck E. Cheese's. If I wanted to use are there, I could change it to something like teammates. My teammates are going to Chuck E. Cheese's. That would work. But if you're using it as a collective, as one whole unit, treat it as singular. Another rule with subject-verb agreement are the indefinite pronouns. I think we saw these last semester real briefly as well. The big thing to know with the indefinite pronouns in agreement is that there's a set of pronouns that will always be singular, a set that will always be plural, and a set that can be either, depending on what they describe. The always singulars are, for the most part, the forms of one, body, and thing. So anyone, anybody, anything, everyone, everybody, everything, no one, nobody, nothing, someone, somebody, something. Those are always singular, right? Somebody is in my house. Everybody is in my house. Nobody is in my house. Anybody is in my house. They take singular verbs. Both few, many, and several are always going to be plural, and they'll take plural verbs. Both of the pizzas were delicious. Few of the pizzas were delicious. Many of the pizzas were delicious. Several of the pizzas were delicious. Notice they all take plural verbs. All, most, some, any, and none can be either singular or plural, depending on what they describe. This isn't especially difficult for subject-verb agreement, but we'll definitely take a look at this with pronoun antecedent agreement next week. It's kind of a similar rule, but with pronouns instead of verbs. Compound subjects. So, as a reminder, a sentence can have more than one subject. We generally use and or to bring those together. Compound subjects joined by and are always going to be treated as plurals. So, Carrie and Vanessa live instead of lives in Kentucky. Carrie and Vanessa together form a plural subject. The blue bike and the red wagon need, instead of needs, repairs. Notice how wrong it sounds to switch those out for singular verbs. I wouldn't say the blue bike and the red wagon needs repairs. It doesn't sound right at all. Oftentimes your ear is your best friend with subject-verb agreement. Or is a little bit trickier. If your subjects are joined by or nor, the verb's going to agree with the subject closest to it. One way that you can think about that is to get rid of everything before the subject and verb and see if that works. Neither the van nor the buses were operating. If I'm not sure whether to use was or were right there, I could just get rid of neither the van nor and just see the buses were operating, the buses was operating, it's were for sure. Either the dogs or the cat is responsible. Notice that cat is singular, so is gonna be singular as well. Don't get fooled by some of the fluff in that sentence. If you see or nor, use the subject closest to the verb. All right, so the there is, there are rule. This one gets a little bit strange. There is and there are one of the only constructions in the English language that pushes the subject to the end of the sentence. So whether you use there is or there are just depends on whether the noun later on in the sentence is singular or plural. So if I said there are 5 grapes, notice that grapes is plural. My subject actually comes at the end of the sentence this time, so it's going to take that plural verb are, because it's plural grapes. There are 5 of them. There is a cat. A always tells you that there's one, so singular cat, singular verb is. I know I flew through subject-verb agreement. Again, feel free to rewatch this video as much as you need for the sake of note-taking. Your notes will be helpful, both from tense and agreement, as you work on your tense and agreement practice here. Let's look at that real quick. All right, so verb tense and verb agreement practice. It's actually 2 practices. They're both relatively short. For the tense practice, I give you a passage with 5 underlined verbs, and for each verb, I need you to select the option that places that verb in the correct tense. A big reminder I like to give you here is that the tense of a verb must be consistent with the other verbs in the sentence or the surrounding sentences. So once you identify what tense this whole story should be in, that should help you identify verbs. I'll give you a hint to start you off. It says, when I sat down, I noticed the lunchroom was divided. Notice that this is past tense, sat and was. And then we get to number 1. There is the boys on one side. So is present tense. The story so far has been in past tense, so is cannot be correct. When you go to select the correct verb for this one, you just have to choose which verb is correct. Easiest way to do it is to highlight. So what you can do is find the answer that you like. You can highlight by clicking the little highlight button right there, or a little hotkey is Control-Alt-H. So if I highlight C and hit Control-Alt-H, that'll highlight that one for me there. Do the same for the other ones that are given to you. You'll notice that the numbers line up with the underlined verbs throughout that paragraph. The other practice I've given you here at the bottom is subject-verb agreement. In each sentence, circle or highlight the verb that agrees with the subject. Highlighting is the easy way to go here. So the little boy is or are ready to go to Chuck E. Cheese. I'll do this one with you right here. Little boy is singular, so I need a singular verb. It's going to be is. I wouldn't say the little boy are ready to go to Chuck E. Cheese. That doesn't make sense. Control-Alt-H, or I can hit that highlight button. That's how you can identify your answers for each of these ones. So this practice should go relatively quickly. I'll encourage you to take your time. I'll also encourage you to ask me questions throughout the day today if you need help with any specific items on this practice.